What do you do when you know you want to own your own business, but you don't quite feel like you're an expert at anything? Hi, welcome to another episode of Business Mindset Mastery. My name's Heather Gray. I'm a mindset and performance coach for business owners, leaders, and entrepreneurs. And you can find me over at choosetohaveitall.com. And today's discussion is brought to you by a Facebook post I saw recently. I didn't get the writer's permission to use the post on my podcast, so I'm only going to summarize the discussion because I don't want to abuse anyone's confidentiality. But the question was posed in a business group, and basically the question went something like this. I know I want to own my own business. I know I want to be my own boss, but I don't quite feel like I'm an expert at anything. I don't know who would buy from me. I don't know how to set myself up for success, and I don't know how to decide what I do. So many people talk about the idea that you can choose a passion, you can choose a hobby, you can do what you love, but I don't quite know what that is. And the poster went on to say different interests that they had, and I'm not going to share that because, again, I don't want the post to be identifiable. But it's this idea of I know enough, but do I know enough to run a business? And I was thinking about this discussion because so often the messaging in the online space is you can build a business doing anything. You can make money doing your hobbies, and it's easy, and here's how. And the reality is it's not entirely that easy. And you've heard me speak on the show before about the idea that I also don't think it's entirely responsible. That when you are selling a product or service, you have to be able to stand behind what you're offering. That being said, I don't think that this person should stop working towards owning a business, should stop trying to build the foundation. In fact, I think they should do the exact opposite. I think the poster, if she had asked me what I thought, I think what I would tell her is this. The thing you care about, care enough about it to become an expert at it, to get to know it. But you don't have to wait until you know all the things before you press go on starting a business. There are so many things that you need to set up, so many pieces to the puzzle that you can get going before you start making money doing the thing you want to offer. And the example that comes to mind for me is the Bad Crypto podcast. I wish I could remember right off the tip of my tongue who the host for that show is. It's two hosts, so the hosts for the show are, but they really got into cryptocurrency. They were talking about it back and forth. They were learning about it personally, just as friends. They were talking about it on the phone, over Messenger, and they were like, hey, our discussions would make for a really good podcast. We don't know anything about crypto. There's a bunch of people who don't know anything about crypto. Maybe as we're learning, our audience can learn with us. And they put all these caveats in place. They tell you that they're newbies. They tell you that you have to check twice on their advice. But as they learn things, they share it with the audience. And they meet the audience where they're at. And then sometimes they stay a step or two or three, in my case, 5 steps ahead of the audience. But they take their audience on the journey of learning. And they build a following of people who are also interested in learning that thing. I hate the idea of people who come in and offer life coaching when they have no clue how to talk to people, how to maneuver inside people's heads, how to have those really hard conversations. I believe that when you're giving people advice, you have to know what you're talking about. You have to feel confident enough so that you don't worry day and night that you're going to be called out and be called a fraud. That you know enough to be dangerous, right? And at the same time, that when you tell people where you're at in the journey, when you show people that you're just learning, sometimes they just want to learn with you because they don't want the expert. They want the person who's in the trenches with them. There's incredible value in transparency and telling people who you are so they believe you. Talking about the fact that you dream of making this a business someday, of building a life around this passion and helping other people who care about the same thing get better in the same way. I think that can be really enticing for people, and it gives you practice to show up as you are in all honesty with all of the things you have yet to know and learn learn with people. I think it could be powerful for you, and I think it could build a powerful foundation, right? But the other piece to this is you're defining yourself by what you don't know. I am not an expert. I don't know a lot. How could I run a business? And those types of questions paint you into corners. They keep you blocked, and you define yourself by your limitations. I would turn that question inside out, and I would ask yourself, how can I become an expert in? How can I learn what I need to know to be able to help other people build their lives and their passions? What do I need to do? What are the steps I need to take? How can I get there? All of those are forward-moving questions. The answers will imply forward-moving actions that get you closer to the goal. So it means right now, no, you probably can't build a business knowing next to nothing about a passion and make money from it, because that wouldn't be where you're at right now. Right now, you're on the learning journey, and the learning journey is the building foundation journey. And of course, you don't know whether or not you love it enough to build a business about it. And of course, you don't know if it's the right thing for you. You're only going to know that by being curious, by digging deep into the topic, learning more about it, seeing how many different things you find interesting, what brings you closer and wanting to know more, what pushes you away and wants you to make less. Like, this is the part where you get curious about yourself. You find out for yourself whether or not this passion, this thing you care about, is enough to build a business on. Because when I was starting mindset coaching, I had a ton of experience with mental health therapy. It was a relatively simple leap. It wasn't an experience thing, but I knew nothing about working an online business. I knew nothing about the tech, the software, how to build a website. I was not an expert in that. I was an expert in my topic, but I was not an expert in online business ownership. So I had to learn all those things. And as I met people who got to know me and were interested in my services, I was completely transparent with them to say, hey, listen, I have a lot of experience in the things that you need help with. Where my experience is lacking is in the online tech. So you can expect wobbles from me. My website might not connect accurately. I may not get that automation right, but I promise you I'm working on it. I was so worried that I wouldn't be taken seriously, that people wouldn't respect me if my ignorance when it came to online software, technology, and all of those things came to light, that I was kind of paralyzed and I was hiding. So instead of hiding, I just put myself out there and I was honest. This is what I know. This is how I've come to know it. And this is where I don't know. And if you let the audience know, if you let the people you're talking to know that, you give them the power to decide for themselves. And they absolutely will buy from newbies. A really good example of this for me is ConvertKit. Now, ConvertKit is an automated email system that allows you to build email lists and talk to your audience. When I got into the online space, they were still beta testing it. It was messy, it was glitchy, it was disorganized, links didn't work, there were all kinds of problems, and all sorts of things were wrong. But they were so crystal clear. We want to develop something that's streamlined, efficient, and productive for everybody. But we're just getting started. We're learning the ropes with you, and if you're okay with that, get on board. And I was one of the founding members of that. And I knew they were new, but I bought from them because I loved the idea of investing in a new business owner, in a new product or service, and supporting another entrepreneur. And if you can be that transparent, somebody may do that with you as well. Here's the thing though. So many people hide behind not knowing. I don't know enough yet. I still have to do research. I have to learn this. I have to do that. And you know what happens? They stay still and they never freaking move. They don't take the next step. They don't take the next action. And you want to think about, there's this book, I think it's called The One Thing. I think that's I think that's the name of the title, but it's called The One Thing. And it's, you don't need to know all the things. You don't need to know every single step of the process. You just need to know what's next. So when you think about the things you're interested in, when you think about the things that light you up, that you're passionate about, that you want other people to know about, when you identify those things, just focus on what's next. Have a single question about that topic, explore the answer, and then start to share what you know with the people who have expressed interest in that same topic. So that might mean finding a Facebook group about it. That might mean finding other online forums, going to live events, finding book authors who have written about it and sending them emails, getting into conversations, finding people who share the passion in having conversations with them, and building out your expertise, building out your exposure, paying attention to these things. Because when you tell yourself a story that you don't know, or you're not an expert, you're standing still rather than turning it on its head and saying, what are you willing to do to become an expert? If you want to own your own business, what are you willing to do to take those steps and to figure out what it is you need to do to get yourself ready for it? What do you need to invest in? How do you need to spend your time? And how do you need to stop spending your time? You get into an examination process of the steps you need to take, and you start taking them. But so many people just sit in when they don't know, and they stop at the question. And it is my biggest pet peeve when it comes to mindset. The number of times people don't take action because they don't know something, rather than remembering that we live in a Googleable world. We live in a YouTube world. There is nothing that we can't find the answer to. Everything, Marie Forleo says this all the time, everything is figure outable. But we have to decide for ourselves that we want to figure it out, that we're willing to not know, that we're willing to stop in the uncertainty and the insecurity and get ourselves comfortable with the topic enough to build a business and a brand around it. The longer we sit with the not knowing, the longer we sit in that instability, immobility, frozen stuck state, the more we get stuck and frozen in the old stories about ourselves. But we can defrost from that. We can melt from that. We can take new action when we choose to be the people who find out. When we choose to be the people who say not knowing isn't reason enough not to start, I'm just going to figure it the F out. And then they move, and you read a book, you read an article, and you share something you've learned. You start a conversation. You ask other people. You make a list of questions of things that you're most curious about, and you ask other people for the answers and find mentors in the spaces. But you make a choice. It's the difference, and you've heard me say this on the show before. It's the difference between having a goal and making a decision. It's a difference between someday I might to today I will. It starts with having the question and deciding what you're going to do next. Not knowing isn't reason enough not to do it. Making it hard, finding it difficult isn't reason enough to not do it. Start with your own curiosity. Move through the world as somebody who's learning and becoming an expert at whatever it is you're passionate about. And as you do it, 6 weeks in, 7 weeks in, 9 weeks, 12 weeks, see if you still like it. See if it still lights you up. See if you still care about it. Because if 3 months in you're not so sure, you probably haven't found the thing, right? That's the thing I really want you to focus on and think about. Have you made a decision to own a business, or are you just thinking about it? Once you make a decision, you just have to focus on what's next. Getting the information, learning about your topic or product, learning about the people who need to hear about it, engaging in conversations with them, finding out what their specific pain points are, and learning how you can serve those pain points. But to get started, you start with a question, you discover the answer, you share the answer, and then you move on to the next question. But you get going. You don't sit and think about it. You don't sit in inaction. You've made a decision and you're exploring it. The only way you're going to know if you've hit on the thing is to explore the thing, beginning, middle, and end. That's the only way it works. But if you want to own a business, you absolutely can. You just need to get your ducks in a row first. That's all that needs to happen. And I totally think, anybody who wants to do that, who has an idea, who has a passion, who has a hobby, is capable of doing that. They just need to make the choice. And they also need to recognize that it's not going to be easy. That, it's not simple. It's multifaceted. There's a lot to learn. There's layers to it, but it's completely possible for anybody who makes the decision to go after it for themselves. It's not possible for the people who sit and think about it. So I think on this Friday, that's where I land with you for today. I hope this was a good conversation. If you have a question and you want my 2 cents on your specific problem, definitely let me know. You can find me over at heather@choosetohaveitall.com. I enjoyed talking to you today, and I look forward to talking to you again next week. Bye for now.
The podcast you just heard was recorded with Anchor. If you want to make your own, download the Android or iOS app completely free from anchor.fm/podcast. That's anchor.fm/podcast.